Are you in a band with a new album coming out? Are you an artist wanting more people to check out your work? Is there an event you want to promote? Do you own or run a company that sells a cool product or service? In Defense of Ska gets over 10,000 unique downloads each month. If you're interested in advertising on the podcast, we offer very reasonable rates and can help with the production of the ad. The ads are dynamic, meaning they will be placed on every episode for a given period of time. If you're interested, direct message us or email us at indefenseofska@gmail.com.
Ryan Seaman's band, I Don't Know How, But They Found Me, performed on Ellen in 2021. That's a significant level of pop stardom for any band. But before Ryan drummed for I Don't Know How, he played in several other groups, Falling in Reverse, the Eyeliners, and I Am Ghost. But going back even earlier in his life, Ryan grew up going to ska and punk shows in Utah. On today's episode, we go way back in time to when Ryan was a young ska fan and dig into the scene he grew up in that made him the drummer he is today.
Okay, I gotta admit, I love having guests on who saw my old band. It makes me feel so validated, especially when it's somebody who has had such a career as Ryan Seaman.
Yeah. What's your old band called?
Link 80.
Oh, I think I saw Link 80 before.
Oh, did you? Actually, did you ever see the band when I was in it?
I'm not sure. I definitely saw
I don't
Dessa.
think you did. You saw Dessa for sure.
And I saw Link 80 reunion.
Yeah.
So there, that counts.
Okay, that counts. Fine. But Ryan Seaman saw us when he was a kid in Utah, and now giant rock star.
His band, I Don't Know How, But They Found Me, is so big that they've played Ellen.
Yeah.
That's a whole other level of stardom that I think exceeds our previous guests. What do you think?
I mean, definitely. When I looked this band up on Spotify, because I'd never heard of them, they're huge. And the songs, while it's like pop music, are really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's not your standard pop music fare. If you're a musician who appreciates, if you're just a person who has ears, who appreciates lots of different interesting sounds happening in a song and well-constructed songs, great band.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan grew up going to ska shows, so that's why we had him on.
Yeah. Let's talk about going to ska shows.
Ryan, you were about to tell us about the greatest show you ever saw, and it involves Adam.
All right, check it out though, for real. One of the best show, one of, because I've been to a lot of concerts. I love going to shows. It's like my thing. But I think this would have been in the winter of, I want to say 99, maybe 99 or 2000. But yeah, you guys were on tour with Voodoo Glow Skulls when they put out Band Geek Mafia, and I think Buck 09 was doing 28 Teeth. And there was no barricade or anything, and people were just stage diving, head walking, the whole thing. All night long, circle pits, it never stopped. And I was at a place called Area 51, and that still was one of the best shows I've ever been to. Today, I think it cost $10 to go, so it was great.
That's a lot for back then.
You had three big bands, that were stacked. So, at least in my time, I considered that big.
What town was Area 51 in?
That was in Salt Lake City. It was right.
Okay.
It was in the quote unquote ghetto of Salt Lake City. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word anymore, but yeah, it was not in a good neighborhood, you could say. But
Gotcha.
But really, it was just like Salt Lake City. Everywhere was pretty nice, There was just like one part of town. And I think it only got that reputation because Area 51 was next to like a mission, and there could be like some crime there. But overall, I mean, it's one of the safest places I've ever been to.
Adam, do you remember the show at all?
That one, not specifically, I don't think.
Yeah, it's also the Nelly Furtado one where she was playing upstairs and you guys were.
I definitely remember that one.
Yeah, that was fun, man.
Also, because I'm pretty sure the stage at the basement show at Deviate that we played,
yeah,
which was also with Voodoo, I'm pretty sure the stage was like milk crates
Yep.
stacked on top of like with plywood stacked on top of it.
Yes, exactly. It kind of reminds me of now that I've been touring a lot, it kind of reminds me of like Jerry's Pizza almost.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Very similar vibe.
Super similar. And then you had the mirror like in the corner, or not the corner, like behind you, you know? So and there was like a big pole in the middle.
Yep, I remember the pole. There's a picture of me leaning against the pole while I'm playing guitar.
It's so funny, man. Yeah, and then I know that this has nothing to do with ska, but I got dragged out to a show down there with a band at the drive-in in Blue Tip, and there was like 15 people. And I remember at the drive-in like kind of throwing a fit about it, and they only played like 6 songs and they left. And I was like, this is incredible. Why did they stop? You know, and I had never seen anything like it. But yeah, there's a lot of first times for me in Salt Lake, you know, between Kilby Court and Deviate. Yeah, Deviate burned to the ground. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It did, yeah. Burned down, I want to say about maybe 15 years ago now.
Do you think it was for insurance money?
You know what? That actually like was a thought process of mine, because I mean, it's Salt Lake clubs are so hard to just like keep open, and I don't know why. It's always been like
Mormons, that's why.
Maybe.
Adam grew up Mormon, so he's allowed to say that.
My singer is also Mormon, so.
Oh, nice. Is he still Mormon?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he lives in Salt Lake City, and he's doing the whole thing. So.
What about you?
I am not. I got to Salt Lake City because my dad at the time, I never went to the same school twice until I moved to Utah, actually. And what ended up happening is my dad was shooting like a bunch of TV shows, and we moved out to Salt Lake City for the show called Touched by an Angel. And so I spent my informative years, like 7th through 12th grade, just like playing music and learning about bands and going to like a fuck ton of shows and just, you know, being involved in my local music scene.
How did you start playing drums?
So I was going to say when I was a kid, my dad, like most people, you know, maybe your family introduces you to something, but I had no siblings either. So it was, you know, if I found something, I felt like I'd like discovered it, you know? I got introduced to the Beatles at a very early age, like probably like 2nd grade. And then from there, I remember walking into like a CD warehouse, you know, where you could like go buy CDs back then. I know it's a prehistoric time, but you go to the record store,
Yes.
you know, there's these things called albums, and there was a picture of this like cartoon, and it said Green Day Dookie, right? And I never heard of the band or anything, and they had like a little listening booth, and I put on that record, and it completely changed my life, and it opened so many doors for me. That record alone. So
wow.
Yeah. So, and then I started watching a bunch of MTV, and then I was going to say one of the first ska bands I got into was because of that movie Clueless. It was the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Yeah.
So so that was my introduction to ska music, and then I would later see them on MTV, you know, and there was like that big craze, and like I want to say it was like 96, 97 when it was like Boss Tones, Real Big Fish, the Specials. I'm trying to think of all the bands that were even being played by then. You know, they did this thing called like Ska Saturday on MTV. Do you guys remember that?
Yep.
Scotterday. Yeah. They did it for like a hot second. Really hot second. I even think they threw on like Royal Crown Review and like Cherry Pop and Daddies, even though like to me that's not really ska. I know Cherry Pop and Daddies made a ska record, but that's here nor there. But yeah, so that's when I started playing drums, man. I started playing in like the 4th grade. MTV was pretty much like my Bible until I went to Salt Lake City and learned about a whole underground, you know, punk and ska scene and hardcore as well. So I listen to everything, man. I'm not just like you know, I'm not closed-minded. You know, I listen to a lot of stuff. So
I was listening to the Kings of No Hope, the stereo podcast.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I heard a familiar name in the first episode.
What? Yeah. Who was that?
Yeah, it was you.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and I became friends with Jamie because you know what's really funny about this whole podcast that we're doing right now. My friend Travis Brooks is the one that kind of introduced us, I think. Right.
Yeah. And
he was a guy that I just grew up going to shows with. He got me into a lot of stuff, man. You know, he kind of got me into like Utah had like a huge ska scene too. So I remember he was like trying to show me what like Animal Chin was. And then, you know, after obviously I wasn't old enough to go see Animal Chin, but then, you know, years later, Jamie would come through Salt Lake City with the stereo, and I became a huge fan, and I started just going to all their shows whenever they'd come, even to places like Deviate or, you know, Kilby Court. Nice. Those are my two most often visited places, you know.
If you had to pick one, what's your favorite stereo song?
Oh my God. If I had to just paint it all, probably Ramona.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing.
Really?
It's such a good song.
Well, it's good, yeah. So you're friends with Jamie though now, right?
Yeah, I kind of developed a relationship with him. I was going to say, probably in like '99. I just kept being a familiar face, and I go to their shows and I give him I give him demos. I would just talk his ear off. I was just a kid. Be like, oh man, please listen to my band, please, yeah. And then we keep in touch, and then I think when my career really started for me, when I was in Salt Lake, because I was in this local punk. Well, I'm trying to think of how far I should take it back, because I guess my first any kind of like success in a band was actually was a ska band. It was
Just Add Water.
Just Add Water. Yes, someone's done their homework. Okay. Yeah, I was in a band called, it's funny though, because I never got to record with Just Add Water. That was I've been asked to leave 2 bands in my entire life, and that was one of the other bands I got asked to leave. Was my 9th grade ska
Wow. Why do you get asked to leave a 9th grade ska band?
I think at the time, it was my 9th grade ska band. Everybody else was like way older than me. So that was
Sure.
that was my problem growing up, is that I would find all these musicians, but they were like so much older. Like when I was 17, I was in this band, the Teen Tragedies, and everybody else was like 23, 24.
Right, which at that point may as well be like 100 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, between those two, there's a lot I still needed to understand. There's a lot, that they needed to understand. But going back to the ska band, I remember just going to shows. It's really funny. Do you guys know this band called Insatiable? Have you guys heard of them?
No.
Okay. They were a pretty big Utah had like a really big underground ska scene. There's even like websites dedicated to it. It was like utahska.com. And I would just go to all these ska shows, right? So Insatiable was probably one of the bigger bands, but the trumpet player was my band teacher. So he would like always say, hey, if you guys want to come out to the show tonight, it's at this place. And usually they were playing like bars, so I couldn't really go. But yeah, so Insatiable was a big band in Utah. There's this other band called Sturgeon General. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I remember them. Yeah.
Sturgeon General. So like, I remember I got a demo with my band Just Add Water. We recorded like a little, we recorded this little demo in my parents' living room, where we just held like a microphone out onto a tape, like a legitimate tape. And then we would listen back to make sure you can hear everything and, everything like that. And so I would go around giving these tapes to ska bands around town, asking if we could open for them. So I did that with Sturgeon General. They gave us like one of our first shows. There's hardly anybody there. And then, there was this place in Utah called Provo, which was like so thriving with ska back in like the mid 90s. And I remember there was this band that I went up to. I was like 14 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. And these guys were so nice, because they were probably in their early 20s. And like, I looked up to them, and they were all really great at their instruments, but they were called My Man Friday. You guys know them? Have you heard of them at all?
Nope.
No.
Man, they were huge. Like the Slackers would come into town, and like they would open up for My Man Friday because they were that big. Just to give you guys the scope of everything. Same thing with like, a band like Jeffrey's Fan Club, or like Homegrown. I don't know if I'd call Homegrown a ska band, but just
they have some ska. You can call them ska.
Like but they would come in from out of town, just like this band like Attaboy Skip. I don't know if you've heard of them either, but they would come up and just they would just come up and open up for My Man Friday. And so I gave the singer Jimmy a demo at the time, and then he liked what he heard, and he asked us if we wanted to open up this show called Scalaween. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that was a big Utah thing. Every year it was like an annual thing. So I think it went on for like 10 or 15 years, like the 15th annual Scalaween in Provo, Utah.
What did you dress up as for Scalaween?
I don't even know. I don't even think we dressed up. I think we just like went extra with like what we would usually wear,
Okay, so your band outfits were your costume.
Yeah, pretty much. Like sometimes we dressed up, sometimes we did like the whole suit and tie thing. Sometimes everybody just looked like a crazy deranged punk rocker. But what was interesting in being in a ska band is that everybody's personalities were like so different from one another. So like our bass player was this he was like this like gothic looking guy, and now he's like a successful screenplay artist. We had this guy named Ed. He was like super punk rock. Ed's no longer with us. He actually died recently in the
I'm sorry to hear that.
The Oakland fire that happened.
Oh, in Ghost Ship?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow.
He was in that recently. So rest in peace, Ed. And then you had this other kid, David, who was really, really great at Barry Sachs. Now he's like a financial advisor. I'm the only one left that's still doing this.
Just the music.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then our trombone player / singer, because we had 2 singers. One his name was Hoyt. all he would do is sing, and then Peter would like play trombone. Sometimes he would scream too. I wish I had like these demos still somewhere. I'm sure I do, but then once I left the band, I felt like it started to go downhill, and 6 months later they ended up breaking up anyway. But we're all still friends. It's all good.
You were the glue.
Maybe, in hindsight, well, because I was like always the hustler, man. Like I was always going out to shows and like meeting people and talking. I mean, I guess that really hasn't changed all that much, but yeah.
But you haven't said what it is that they kicked you out over.
Dude, honestly, I literally have no idea. Maybe because I was just acting like an immature 14-year-old. I think what it really was is that I wanted to take the band more seriously than everybody else, and I was like kind of a stickler. Like I would be like, we got to practice like every single day. We got to do this, and it was just I was creating like my own boot camp, and you have to realize that like not everybody's like on the same wavelength, But I took it so seriously even at that age.
The only Utah band I'm familiar with is Stretch Armstrong.
Oh, yeah. Not to be confused with the hardcore band, but yes.
I roadied for Skank and Pickle on one tour they did. It was when they brought 7 Seconds.
Oh my God.
Were you at that show?
No, I was not. But my band, we also did ska covers. So we covered the song Nate B as well.
Ah, nice.
So yeah, we love doing. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. That was Slapstick. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Skank and Pickle. Jesus Christ. Gas in My Car. That's the song. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I had to correct myself.
So Skank and Pickle played. I roadied from this on one tour. They played Salt Lake City. 7 Seconds were their supporting act. Slapstick actually were on that tour with them, but they did not play Salt Lake City. And Stretch Armstrong was the opening band.
Okay.
Of that show, and I don't remember where it was, but I remember I feel like it was kind of a hall. It wasn't like a club. It was like some kind of hall.
Was it an American Fork? Is that sound familiar? Does that ring a bell?
I have no idea. I just kind of remember like this open hall sort of scenario, and I remember that there was like some kind of fight that happened at that show where it was like the bouncers were like being really aggressive with the audience, where they were like, if anybody would try to get on stage, they would like yank them and pull them down really aggressively. And then at one point, like Mike Park, the singer for Skank and Pickle, he just got in one of the bouncers' face, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then the whole audience was like, "Yes."
Really?
Just yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man. Yeah, I've known Mike now for a minute. We're not super close or anything, but I toured with him. He was tour managing Alkaline Trio back in 2002, and this was one of my first tours I ever. So like, you're wondering how did Ryan get from his 9th grade ska band all the way to like today? I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
After that, I ended up like I was so distraught though, when I left my band. But I still kept going to shows, and I saw this band called the Teen Tragedies. They opened up for Good Riddance, and I ended up. I thought they were incredible, and I just started talking to them, and I think their drummer quit after that show, and I said I wanted to try out. They weren't sure because of my age, because I was like 15, and they were all old enough to drink and all that stuff. They were straight edge, but just to give you the scope of like how much older they were than I was, like my mom would have to drive me to band practices and stuff, But I tried out for the band, and I made it, and then I became that guy that was like, I go to all the shows, I pass out flyers, I work my ass off trying to get us on shows, and we were all kind of connected in our band. We even had like a online zine back in the day called Punk Beat, and we would review punkbeat.net, and we would review bands' records. So it could be ska, hardcore, punk, whatever we wanted to do. But yeah,
do you remember any records that you reviewed back then?
I remember doing an interview. So I only got to do 2 interviews for that magazine. I got to go see this band Pushover.
Yeah, X Meal Ticket.
Yep, X Meal Ticket. That's right. And so, isn't it crazy how much I know about ska, even though I'm like not even I'm not even in a I haven't been in a ska band for like over 2 decades.
It sticks with you.
It does, yeah. But it was a good time though, man. No, what's funny about that whole scenario is that years later, their bass player became my lawyer, so I still use him as an attorney in sometimes in certain cases. Dave Ferreira, he's great.
Who was the other artist that you interviewed?
The other one was the Aquabats. So I got to interview them because they came to my high school and they played a show. And I would say that was probably my first introduction to those guys. And then, a couple years after, I'm just kind of going on all sorts of tangents, but what I was going to say is like, that was the first time we had ever met each other. And then a few years later, if you fast forward the clock, I ended up moving out to California to be in this band called Fairview that was on the Militia Group.
Mm-hmm.
And the Aquabats took Fairview on tour, and I reminded them, I was like, hey, like, I don't know if you're gonna remember this, but like a few years ago, you came to my high school and I interviewed you guys, and now I'm on the road with you. This is all crazy. and they did. They totally remembered. And then, years later after that, I still kept in touch with Aquabats. And then when they found out that, I was starting a band with my friend Dallin, they reached out and asked if we wanted to be on some of their shows. So that was pretty cool. I still keep in contact with the Aquabats today. I almost got to fill in for Ricky before COVID happened on drums. I guess there was some reason he couldn't do like 3 shows like in a row. I forget why. But it must have been like family related or something like that. But at the 11th hour, they're like, "Oh, we don't need you after all, but thanks for learning, the songs. Here's a little bit of thank you cash, and we'll see you around." And I just was like, "Fuck," because I got the costume and everything. I still have the costume and I have the belt. So if you guys need that belt back, Aquabats, you just give me a call. And I'll get.
Yeah, I was gonna say in 2019 you posted a picture of yourself as an Aquabat.
I did, and so I decided it was 2 days before Halloween that they broke the news to me. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to be an Aquabat for Halloween. And I remember going to a couple parties, and people were like, "Man, that is like a really legit costume." And I was just like, "Well, thank you. It might be official. You never know." So yeah, they gave me 2 costumes to hold on to, and I still have it. And then I ended up tour managing them in 2019 on a tour with Real Big Fish. It was so much fun. So much fun. I had time off, so I figured, like, if I wasn't doing anything, why not go tour a little bit of the country with my friends?
If you have time off and someone offers you a tour manage the Aquabats, do you do it?
Of course, right?
Yeah.
And that looks fucking amazing on a resume, because there's like so many guys, like in costumes, and you have to make sure that they're all accounted for, and you got to make sure they're not hungry or they know where they are. It's a lot harder than people think.
I have a question about that. When you tour manage the Aquabats, did you wear the costume as tour manager?
I did not.
That's not part of the rules of tour managing Aquabats.
It was not a part of the rules, but I will tell you something really funny. We were at Riot Fest. This is 2019, and I remember, like, I don't know, there was something wrong with like some packages. So there was like, they're like, "Ryan, we need to get to the hotel right now. Our package of 200 inflatable burgers just came, and it's our props for the show." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how am I supposed to get across town and get these 200 inflatable burgers in time?" And then like Lagwagon was playing like on the same stage, and you just see like me and the Bat Commander up there just like pumping air into these inflatable burgers. And then when they played that song in Burger Rain, I just opened up the trash bag, and they all flew away, and it looked so beautiful out in the the pink sky. Just to give you guys a visual, just fucking 50 balloons probably just going out everywhere. But no, those guys are so rad. I love them so much with all my heart. I can't believe we've been in each other's lives for that many years, and just the fact that, like, Christian is such a legend, man. I mean, he's been an actor. He created Yo Gabba Gabba. He does music videos for bands all the time. He did 2 of our band's music videos.
Oh, I don't know how, but they found me.
Yes, yeah. So he did Nobody Likes the Opening Band, and he also did Social Climb. So those are the videos that he got to do with us. And I love him, man. I love Christian. I love Ian. I love everybody in that band.
I haven't watched those 2 videos, but I did watch several of your videos.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I noticed, there is an ongoing theme about you guys looking like you're being experimented on.
Okay.
Is this intentional, or is this something that just happened?
I mean, there's a little bit of a storyline. I'm surprised that no one's caught, a certain. Well, I mean, some fans have caught it already, but there's like a little Easter egg that's in every video. There's a character that appears, so maybe check that out next time and see if you can just like visualize it, see if you can actually see it. But there's a character that is a reoccurring guy in all of our videos.
Interesting. So, Travis, you mentioned Travis Brooks before.
Yeah.
He gave me a little intel, and so I'm going to just throw some info at you and get your...
Should I be scared? Should I be scared about this?
No.
All right. Okay.
This is all very wholesome.
All right, good.
Okay, so he said that you guys met at a Jeffrey's fan club show.
Jeffrey's fan club. That's for yeah, I believe so. Mm-hmm. That sounds right.
Do you remember anything else about that show?
I remember that the straight edge kids wanted to beat me up. That's what I remember.
Why did they want to beat you up? What were you doing?
I don't know. I was probably just acting like a dumb kid trying to get the crowd to do a circle pit or something,
Were you smoking or anything?
Was I smoking? I
Yeah.
don't think so. Was it smoking?
I don't know.
Well,
Straight edge
the
kids.
straight edge kids. Yeah.
No, I was probably just being a little shit. Because you know what would happen is sometimes the straight edge kids would come to the punk shows just to start shit. They had like they didn't want to like when you were saying there was like a fight, because 7 seconds, like they're a little harder,
Right.
It didn't surprise me when you said, oh yeah, and then there's like a fight that broke out, but that would happen all the time, in that era. So probably from like 97 to 2005, like that was, there were fights all the time.
When my band toured in the 90s,
Yeah.
we played in this Biloxi. I think we played in Biloxi or somewhere in that general area. And this was a town where it was just all straight edge kids.
Okay.
And they tore that club apart.
Oh my God.
Because they were mad because they're like, the promoter says he's not going to do shows here anymore, so we're going to show him. And so they gave us a heads up, so we knew to leave a little early. And
And who were you on tour with at that point?
We were just DIY touring.
Okay.
My band was called Flat Planet.
Okay.
We were not very big at all.
That's okay. I mean, hey, look, like some of my first touring with that band, the Teen Tragedies I was telling you about, we would be lucky if we were playing like 15 people a night in some places, because we just didn't know. We used to use this website called bookyourownfuckinglife.org.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. We use the magazine version.
Okay. Yeah, we used the online version to book shows, but like I'd done maybe 3 DIY tours before I ended up getting picked up by this all-girl punk rock band on Lookout Records, and that's how I met Mike Park like years later. So I got picked up by this all-girl punk rock band called the Eyeliners because they saw how hard I wanted to work, and they were going through this thing where they wanted to put because they're all sisters. So Laura, the drummer, she would sing at the same time, but they wanted to put her in the front so she can run around and captivate the audience, and then I was just like the hired drummer, and the summer tour I got to go on them with was Warped Tour 2002. I was like 5 days out of high school, and I got to see every band I've ever wanted to under the sun, because I loved that kind of music growing up. I loved punk rock. I was a big like Epitaph and Fat Wreck and Asian Man records, Moon Ska, all the stuff.
Mike Park had been wondering recently what happened to the Eyeliners. Can you fill him in?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I kind of talked to them around like birthdays. Okay. They're just being family people. That's all. Okay. They just hung it up.
They just decided no more band, family time.
Family time, exactly. So I mean, they, I knew going into the tour that I wasn't going to be their full-time guy. It was just like, hey, we want you to come out this summer, and then I went out with them again only because there was such like a limited amount of time between tours that I don't think they could train somebody else that fast or something. But so I got to go out with the Warped Tour package, and then the next tour I got to do was No Use for a Name, Yellow Card. This is before Yellow Card got all huge, and then and this band Slick Shoes. And so that was like all of 2002 is like I toured a lot that year, just even being in high school and graduating. And then after that, that's when I was like, oh my God, like what am I going to do with my life? Because I'm like I'm a 19-year-old kid at this point, like that, just stopped touring with like a pretty successful band, and I gave up going to college, and I didn't know what the next move was. So I decided, well, I think I've done everything I can in Utah. Why don't I try Los Angeles? And now I've been out here for 20 years.
What was the first gig you got moving to Los Angeles?
So it was this band called Fairview. So I remember.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right away. I remember that I was like, I went to go see like Nerf Herder or something like that in Utah, and there's this band Fairview that was opening, and I went and talked to Fairview, and I was just like, hey, like I was in this band, the Eyeliners, and blah blah blah, and just talking shop. And they came back with the Aquabats the next time. So the Aquabats loved Fairview, this band. So I went to the show again. I told them I was like moving out to LA. And then this is, it's what's really funny is when I went out to LA, that band, The Stereo, I was looking for places to live, and The Stereo were playing at Chain Reaction that night. So I went to their show, and then after the show, I saw the singer of Fairview. He was passing out flyers. He saw me, and I didn't recognize him at all. He looked completely different, had like a big beard on his face this time. And I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, I'm moving out here in like 2 weeks. And he was just like, oh, well, let's, I think, I'm not sure if we're going to have our drummer anymore, after this next show we're going to play. So let's just keep in touch. And the day I moved out to Los Angeles was the day I got the gig.
So what year is this that you were playing in Fairview?
This was 2003.
Okay.
So I moved out originally to go to a music school, which I only lasted 3 months because of money and because I figured out what I needed to figure out in that music school. So I didn't end up graduating, but I ended up being in this other band. And see, at the time too, it was really crazy because Fairview had already played, like, they already did Coachella, and they did like the Mars Volta's first show and at the Troubadour, and they just had like a bunch of like awesome looks. And so I was like, wow, this could be like the start of something. And then what ended up happening was I ended up like being in a studio for 2.5 years with them, and we were just showcasing all the time and writing music and showcasing. That was just like my life for 2 years. And we like we were going to sign a really bad production deal, and at the 11th hour, we just pulled out just because, who likes to be in bad deals, So, but yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of what shaped me up, is just moving out here. I just kept going out. I went to all sorts of shows though, man. Like, I mean, I did love ska music. I still love ska music. I'm sure if you go on the internet somewhere, this has nothing to do with anything, but if you go on the internet somewhere, you can see some videos of me playing that song "Take on Me" with Real Big Fish.
I was going to ask. So I've heard that on that Eyeliners tour, you got to become friends with Real Big Fish.
I did. Yeah. I don't even know how that happened. Honestly, I think alcohol had a lot to do with it. We would all drink together all the time. And I remember getting really drunk one night, and I was like, man, I really love your guys' version of "Take on Me." It's such a rad song. And I think Aaron said, well, you should come up and play it with us sometime. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, well, you got to ask our drummer Carlos, but I don't see it being a problem. And I asked Carlos, and he was down with it. And so I got to do it like 5 times that summer. It was pretty great. But I mean, it was scary as shit though, being like an 18-year-old kid just graduating high school, and then just like, okay, you're on the main stage of Warped Tour, you're playing for like, 10,000 people. And, I never had that kind of experience before. It was just kind of like 0 to 100 on that point. But hey, alcohol made that happen. So thanks, alcohol. But yeah, so we ended up like, I've been friends with those guys now for a long time. But I don't drink anymore. There's a lot of us that don't drink anymore. But never forget, I guess.
That was your very first tour you did, or
that was so going back to like the BYOFL days, I did 3 like self-booked tours, but then my Eyeliners tour probably would have been like my 4th tour. So in real life, that was probably my first real tour. I mean, the other stuff was like a couple weeks here and there, and just losing money and sleeping on floors and playing basements and farms and fucking outside gazebos at a park, shit like that. Yeah, it's all really crazy to think about when you're just reflecting. So, but yeah, so ever since then though, I would say my career has been kind of steady. It's been one thing after the other. But the band I'm in now has definitely been the longest band I've been a part of. So if the other ones didn't work out, it was because we broke up or somebody quit and then I quit or what, So it's all been circumstantial. But yeah, I've never wanted to leave. It's just been a thing. So sometimes it's about adapt or die, being a musician.
When you're the singer-songwriter, you can be sort of like, this is my band.
Right.
And you can sort of be the captain of this ship for 30 years, even if every other member changes.
Right.
Because
sometimes
they're your songs. Yeah, it depends. I mean, Real Big Fish. I mean, I think Aaron's the only original member.
Right.
But it's still, because Aaron's in the band, it's his songs and people recognize it works.
Or like a band like Voodoo Glow Skulls, you get rid of, get rid of Frank, and then, Ephraim becomes the singer from Death by Stereo. And
that was a risky move they made, but I think it worked out.
It did work. And like, but what's funny though, is that those guys are all brothers, so it's like,
yeah, it's tense now.
Yeah, it's really crazy. those guys is their kids are huge IDK Howe fans. And so they'll hit me up every once in a while for tickets, but then I'm like, haha, can you get me back though? can I go to one of your shows? I think that was one of the first bands I opened up for, like on a national touring level. But they didn't know me. I had to like tell them about it.
With which band?
With Teen Tragedies. So we opened up we were the token support local punk rock band, that people would call. It'd either be us or, for Link 80, I was going to say there was this band that opened up for you guys like a lot. You probably don't remember, but if you did, there was this band from Salt Lake called Hospital Food. Do you remember them?
I don't remember Hospital Food. I remember the Knockouts.
The Knockouts. Oh, that was another great band.
Yeah.
I remember the Knockouts too. Yeah. I want to say somebody, I think somebody in that band was an Osmond. Is that right? No?
Maybe.
I'm thinking of somebody else.
All I know is that after we played with the Knockouts, we went back to a super nice house.
The Knockouts. I remember they were great, actually. I was like watching them thinking they were going to do something, and then they just never did, But that seems to be the story of every Utah band.
Sure.
Yeah, what did they sound like? Tell people what they sound like or anything about them.
Really fast punk rock. Like really fast, but like, oh my God. I actually remember one of their songs right now. It was like, Mushi Mushi's my Japanese girl. That was the I'm not joking. And the bass player kind of looked like correct me if I'm wrong. I think if I'm thinking of the Knockouts, the bass player kind of looked like, and he played the same bass as like Mike Herrera from MXPX. Kind of had that look.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah, and like, oh my God, I really don't know how to compare them. Maybe like if Say Ferris didn't have a girl singer, and they mixed it with like Jeffrey's Fan Club. I don't know. I'd
say that's a good summation.
It had like a SoCal look though,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the 90s were a hell of a time. That's all I know.
Oh, so many. And then the hemp ball chain necklace.
A hemp ball chain necklace. Yeah. Oh man. So good.
Wallet chains all the way down to the knee.
What I do with my chain wallet was I didn't wrap it around like to the front. I let the chain hang out the back.
Oh yeah. That's the way to do it.
That was the way to do it for sure.
I kept a chain wallet for a really long time, and then when it wasn't really cool anymore, I would just tuck the chain in my pocket.
I did that too. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. There would also be times where like the chain, maybe you're sitting like in your classroom and like chain would get stuck to your chair, and you're like, how the hell am I going to get out of this chair without looking like a stupid idiot right now?
Yep. And then you just look like a stupid idiot.
Right. No matter what. So, but yeah, I mean, look, Salt Lake was such a great place to grow up. We had so many good bands. We had so many really bad bands as well. But the point is that everybody was like really involved in their community. And I think that if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be today,
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a story at you that I got from Travis, and you can fill in some details.
Okay, let's try it. Let's go.
All right. So you guys went to go see, first part of the story is you guys went to go see No Motive and Jimmy Eat World at DV8.
Yes. And Face to Face was the headliner.
What's DV8?
DV8 is where Link 80 played, but there was the upstairs.
Yeah, it's a 2-story club. There was a weird basement room, and then like a huge room upstairs that I saw Mr. Bungle play there.
Oh my God!
In the upstairs room. The funny story about that is we were actually playing across town with Homegrown, but we ran into Mr. Bungle at a gas station.
What?
Yeah, I saw Mike Patton standing at a payphone.
Oh my God!
We had just been listening to the California album. Like we had just gotten out of the van and we were listening to it.
Sure.
And he was standing there, and my jaw like hit the floor. And then I just went over to the van, was like, "Are you guys Mr. Bungle?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, where are you playing tonight? And they're like, "We'll put you on the list." And it turned out that their bass player was friends with our trumpet player's dad.
Oh my God!
So he knew us, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll put you on the list." And so he actually put us on the list 2 nights in a row.
Wow! Oh, so they played Salt Lake 2 nights.
They played Salt Lake, and then they played, I think, Denver. And both nights we played with Homegrown.
Yeah.
And then both nights we from the stage, we're like, "Hey, if you want to buy merch, you should do it right after our set, because we're leaving the show to go see Mr. Bungle."
Oh my God!
What a dick move!
That's so funny though. But hey, you knew where your priorities were that night.
I mean, we really wanted to see Mr. Bungle. They were our favorite band.
True. Speaking of hemp necklaces and ball chain, I remember your trumpet player used to wear one.
He wore a lot of ball chain around his neck, like several strands.
He looked like he was like the most like hardcore guy of the group.
He was really, really into hardcore. Now he's just into Swedish metal.
Okay, yeah.
That's all he cares about now. Anything that's techie, anything that has like a weird time signature, anything that's from Sweden.
Right. And then for, I was going to say too, your saxophone player, he won't remember me at all. Is it Steven, right?
Yeah, Steve Borth.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, I kind of got to meet him on that Warped Tour that I was on too, because RX Bandits was on that summer as well during the Progress era.
Yeah.
And God, I just gotta say, like all of you guys could play though, man.
Yeah, so I have a weird story that maybe you can confirm or deny for me.
Okay.
Borth on that same tour, on the first tour he did with RX on Warped Tour.
Yeah.
He said he met Bert, the singer from The Used.
Yeah, Bert. Mm-hmm.
And he said, and he came up to Steve and was like, "Hey, I used to come see you in Link 80.
Okay.
Confirm or deny? Was he at our show?"
Here's the problem.
Sure.
Is that okay? like I said, I've been touring off and on. Like the Used, they're great people. They're really nice. You know, I would be lying if I said I didn't have some jealousy for that band growing up, only because I felt like they kind of just came out of the gate, you know?
Yeah.
Provo and in Salt Lake, two completely different scenes, you know? But the Used were never really in the Salt Lake scene. I can say that. They weren't.
Okay.
They weren't at all.
So they were a Provo band?
Yes. So if Link 80 ever went to Provo, then that might be true.
We did.
Okay, so then yeah, maybe he did. But I think it's like Springfield, Shelbyville, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The Simpsons. It's like that with Utah as well. So like Salt Lake, Provo. It's like for whatever reason, people. I mean, I never thought it was too far. This is going to go back to your Travis Brooks story, by the way, about Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah.
So what we did, real quick, there's just nobody wanted to go to Provo for shows if you were living in Salt Lake, and vice versa. But I would always go to Provo. Same thing with Travis. So what we did was we found out there was an early face-to-face Jimmy Eat World No Motive show happening. And by the way, there was nobody at that show, like legitimately at 3 p.m. It was a double head, like for sure.
Oh, you're talking real early.
Yeah. So the night was definitely sold out, you know, but then the matinee show, there was like 30 of us, maybe 50 at most. And so I remember after the show, Travis and I got in our car and we rushed to go see this band called Warsaw, the Warsaw Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We went to that show. There were 7 people.
Oof.
There. 7 people at that show.
And this was at the American Fork, right?
Right. It was this American Fork. And then when we got in my car, there weren't GPSs back then. So when we got in my car, we tried to remember how to get back to Park City, taking back roads. And it took us like 3 hours or something. Was that the story you're looking for? Was that it?
Yeah. You hit all the details.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Let's go back to the Used.
Okay, the Used. Yes. So I was a jealous kid. I was a very jealous kid. Because yes, I was also on the Warped Tour the summer that they were, but they were on the main stage and I was on the Kevin Says stage, which is at the time it was a little tiny tent that was a foot off the ground and there was like dirt everywhere and the PA wasn't adequate, but it worked. Right. And so I never heard of these guys. We ended up making a relationship on that tour that summer. And from there, it only skyrocketed from main stage Warped Tour and Bert being on the Osbourne show. And so I'm not kidding. You know, I mean, I think he's very talented. I think they're all talented. You know, we've had our share of, you know, good times and bad times together, but overall, like they're my friends and I love them. And you know, their drummer, Dan Whitesides, I would say he was somebody I looked up to heavily in Salt Lake because he was absolutely in the Salt Lake scene, the drummer, like more than anybody else. But I will say that Bert was in I don't want to say they were ska. I don't know what the fuck they were, but they was like, he was in a band called I'm With Stupid. And then the bass player was in a band called Strange Itch. And how we knew about these bands, again, the whole Salt Lake versus Provo thing was like back in the day, there was this label called ABCD Records. And there was like a local Utah label. And so what they would do was get submissions from bands around Utah and they put them all in a compilation. So for people that don't know what a compilation is nowadays, it's a different artist on every single track, you know, and there's maybe 20 fucking songs and you just go buy it at your CD store. So my band was on there at the time and then his band was on there at the time. And that's how I got to first know of what Bert was. But it was he played in bands around town, but again, Salt Lake and Provo were two very different things. And the name of the album was called Final Round, Ska vs. Punk. And you won't be able to find it anywhere anymore.
You can buy a copy on Discogs for like $80 probably.
Do you have a copy?
I probably have one somewhere. It's probably in my parents' basement.
It's good. It's worth a lot of money.
Maybe.
Get it on Discogs.
Yeah, and what's also crazy is that that same summer as well, there was this drummer that was also from Utah that I looked up to super hard. His name was Chris Wilson, and his band at the time, ECO, was on that compilation. But he ended up becoming the drummer of Good Charlotte that summer because their drummer, I don't know, they kicked him out over something. And all these drummers were trying to fill in while Good Charlotte was looking. And then Quinn from the Used at the time was like, oh, my friend Chris, like you should try him out. He'll fly out here, blah, blah, blah. And so that ended up happening. So, I mean, like, I want to say that people in Salt Lake, though, what I really love about the music scene is people do it because they love music. They're not looking for an ulterior motive. They're not looking for stardom. They're doing it because they love music so much.
As somebody that grew up in the Salt Lake City punk scene,
yeah,
What do you and your friends think of SLC Punk?
The first one, okay, I'll say this. The second one, it was so bad I don't even remember it. The first one, however, I thought it kind of spoke to me because, like, at the time, the character that was based on, I don't know if you guys even know this, but it was based on Stefan Egerton from Descendants.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like that's who it was like loosely based on, but some of these characters were like they were real people. But this is before my time. But there was like a heroin Bob, and there was a Steve-O, and so all these people existed. But to what extent the storyline was true or not, I have no idea. But there were a lot of underground punk shows. There was like a shelter place we'd go to all the time called Food Not Bombs, and we'd hear about punk bands that just were kind of like on the rise. Like when I mean on the rise, I mean like no one had ever heard of them. They're on their first tour, and maybe something happened with them, or maybe it didn't, or I just thought they were a great band, and then you never heard of them ever again. So there was a lot of cool little underground punk things happening, but like we had like our own scene. We played like shows at like skate parks. We would, it was just wherever we could create a scene, and there was about maybe, I don't know, 40 local bands at the time that would just support each other. So can I remember them all? Probably not.
So you feel like it kind of captured the vibe?
A little bit, yeah. Definitely, Salt Lake was definitely impressed. We found ourselves having venues shut down constantly. It was really hard to have an all-age venue open up all the time. There's so many permits you had to have. They couldn't serve alcohol in certain places. So it was kind of tough. And then not to mention that it was really gnarly as far as like, fights would happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much at ska shows. I mean, like if a band like yours and like, 7 Seconds were to go on tour, yeah, absolutely. Because why not? Like I remember like Bring Me the Horizon or some shit like got jumped like maybe 15 years ago or something now, or there's like a fight happening. But yeah, bands are scared. Bands are like, I remember I was telling the Eyeliners even, I was like, oh yes, Salt Lake's a gnarly scene, and they laughed. They're like, what? Like it's all like religious, and they're like Mormons, and like, what are you talking about? And like the band Thursday were on Warped Tour, and I was like talking to Jeff, their singer, and he was just like, yeah, man, like Salt Lake was gnarly, and he had to like back me up on the story. Yeah, it was a gnarly place to grow up though. I mean, it was good and bad. Like everything mattered in Salt Lake. Everything. Like shows, the bands, CD release parties, whatever it was. Oh, this band's finally going on tour. Oh, it's so sick. We got to go support them. It was just such a great time. So I really I feel bad for the generation coming up because I don't know if like they have that anymore.
Yeah.
I really couldn't tell you how to start a band now. Honestly,
just totally different world.
Yeah. Now it's like, oh, we got to get this thing on TikTok. Fuck, man. Like, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm not trying to fuck with another app, That's just me, though. Am I going to have to? Probably. I don't know.
So because we're Adam and I are both from Northern California, so we grew up around a plethora of live music, and I never felt like the punk underground, all that stuff, like anybody really cared that much about it. But when we toured through the Deep South, my band,
yeah,
the punks that I met there, they had an edge to them that we didn't have or weren't familiar with, because they kind of dealt with something that we didn't deal with. Like the people actually saw kids with mohawks as something to be scared of, right? So in Utah, Salt Lake City, what was it like there in that respect? Was the presence of like it being a more religious town, did that make the kids more punk or what?
Yes. so much more punk fashion. I think people did it out of spite. And then tattoos were like a big taboo thing too. Like if somebody had like their throat blasted, it was like, oh shit, that guy's never going to get a job. I mean, that was like 20 years, 20 years ago, a lot of things were different. Like I couldn't even dye my hair in school. Like legitimately, I couldn't have like a gnarly color. It had to be natural colors. And now like today, like I went to go speak at my old music department in Park City, like recently for like all the high school kids. And there's kids there with like multicolored hair. And I was like, what the fuck? Like I couldn't do that back then, like piercings and all that stuff. I think in Salt, it was just a different time. But like if you did anything crazy like that, then people did definitely look at you differently. And so they looked at you as like a misfit, or they looked at you as like adolescent, they looked at you less then, I guess you could say.
I see. What about like the presence of the more like quote unquote normal or popular kids? Did they think you guys were dumb and, tease you for being punk rockers or what?
No, they didn't so in my school, I felt like I was the only active one that like actually went and had it like a life outside. Like I went to like I met a lot of my friends just going to shows, right? Because I feel like people in my high school didn't like the music that I liked. So if I liked something, I was like, I'm holding it onto the chest because I don't want anybody else in here to ruin what I had. Does that make sense? I was kind of closed minded though. It was like, oh, that's popular. I don't like it. Just because, not because it was actually bad or anything, but it was like, oh, that band's on like MTV. Like it basically MTV was my whole universe from like 5th grade until high school. But then once I knew that everybody was watching, I'm like, oh, now I'm in this cool like underground punk rock scene, and I know all these bands, and like, fuck you, that was my attitude growing up. But I felt like if you weren't a part of the punk rock scene, if you weren't a part of like the things that I was doing, then I felt like I didn't want to have anything to do with those people because I felt like all those other people judged me, right? But now I'm the one. But then when I look at it in hindsight, I'm actually the one judging all of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Later on, but nobody in my school really knew about anything that was like punk related. What's really funny though is that do you guys know this thing called emo night? Are you guys familiar with that?
It's like the big like dance party sing along thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting from that is I went to one of those once, and well, actually, I should say I've been to a bunch of them. But the one of the first times I went, I met one of the guys that was the creator, and he told me, he's like, "You were the only other person from my town that listened to the same music as me, and I knew about you because you were the only other guy on MySpace." And I was like, "What?" So I got my music. I dare to say I got my music career because of MySpace.
It was a powerful force at a certain couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the forefront of all of that. So like, when that kid told me that, I was like thinking, wow, so there's this other kid from my hometown, because nobody else listened to the kind of shit that I did. So he understood. So I think that's what drove him to make something like that, if that makes any kind of sense.
Wow.
Make a brand like that. I mean, sure, he didn't really listen to the same kind of music I did, but it was still kind of intertwined in the same scene.
Underground music, basically. Yeah.
Right. It's just different. Like, do I like any of the emo night stuff that's out there now? No, it's not really my bag, but I do celebrate that there's people trying to do a scene that was relevant, 20 years ago. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's great. That's just my opinion though. So trying to keep some sort of that underground aesthetic alive.
I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah, please.
I've heard that you were in a made-for-Disney movie.
That's right. I sure was. Oh, did Travis tell you about the time that I stopped at his house during? We needed like an acoustic guitar, and just the location was really close to Travis's house. So
no, I didn't hear that. Let's hear it.
Oh my God. Okay, so again, my dad was a cinematographer. He shot a lot of things, that were in Utah, and I remember there was this made for Disney TV movie where they needed a high school band. And so these shows were non-union, so they wanted to try to save money, as one would do on a production. So they tried out about 5 high school bands that kind of had like a look. And so we were one of the bands that tried out at the time. You won't ever find anything online by us, I could just say it, but we were called The Flare. So we loved the Dance Hall Crashers, and we loved Discount, and so we tried to do our version of that, and of course it wasn't great.
What did you look like? What was the band image?
Bright colors. I had like spiky hair. A lot of like weird like fuchsia colors in the hair. Yeah, just bright, happy looking, just for the show, Yeah. So I remember when I was on this, we tried out for the movie, and then they ended up using my songs for the show, and I still get residuals.
What's the movie called?
It's called The Poof Point.
The Poof Point.
That's right. It's on Disney Plus. It has Taj Mowry. He was in that show Full House, and his 2 sisters are the girls in that show Sister Sister. And then Mark Wahlberg, not Mark Wahlberg. What am I saying? What's his name? Oh my God, the guy from Hanging with Mr. Cooper. What's his name? Mark. Oh my God, I can't even think of his name right now. Oh okay. Man,
Mark from Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I would type this into Google. I just don't care that much. So he was in it. We shot it for like a week. I still get small checks from the shows for the music side of things. And yeah, it was a time of my life.
Wow.
It was a time.
It was a time.
It was a time, yes. So I was eligible for a SAG membership after that. I'm not an actor though. I had a couple speaking lines in it too.
Do you remember any of those lines?
I do, and I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day. Here, I'll practice on you guys. Here we go.
Let's hear.
You know, I'm not sure you got the look. Urban slugs have got to be, you know, smooth. That's one of the lines. They called us the Urban Slugs. And
the Urban Slugs.
Urban Slugs.
It's not the worst band name.
That wouldn't fly today at all. Yeah, but it was, you know, Disney. So we had, I guess maybe they named us that because it needed to be edgier. And I think the flair was copyrighted or something. Again, we were just like a high school band. Like we just played like local shows. It was always really popular in Salt Lake to be in more than one band because there weren't that many bands. There weren't that many musicians. So it's like if you wanted to, I was always encouraged to just have as many bands as humanly possible.
Now, didn't you fill in occasionally for a band called Arrogant?
You guys are really going deep. That's a band I'm really surprised that didn't get signed for real. I think Fuel by Ramen, like they sent somebody out to watch that band back in the day. Yeah, they sent this guy Aaron Phoebus, and he was like doing a bunch of like new media stuff for Fuel by Ramen. Yeah, I think I filled in for them on. I'm a bass player too, though not a lot of people know that. So when I'm writing music, I'm not just thinking like drums. I'm like actually laying down bass on some stuff. But yeah, so I filled in on bass a couple times because I think the drummer's brother was like got sick a couple times, and I was just able to. I learned. I think I learned the song because I watched them so many times. I learned my version of their songs probably in like a day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but those shows were cool. I thought for sure they were going to get signed, 100%.
What did Arrogant sound like?
They looked like a boy band a little bit, but their saxophone player was like a huge straight edge AFI fan. You know,
mm-hmm.
Their trombone player kind of looked like Slim Shady, looked like Eminem. Greg, if you're listening, what's up? God, what captivated me about their band though is that their drummer and the guitar player, they were like dual singers, so they would do harmonies all the time, and I thought they were like some of the best singers I ever heard just in Utah. I'd never heard it. I'd never seen a band do that in a local scene where the drummer and the guitar player would sing at the exact same time.
They were a ska band.
Yeah, but it was weird because the guitar player, he would had this like acoustic electric guitar, right? It wasn't like an acoustic guitar. It was like one of those like, you know, acoustic bodies, but then the neck was you know, what was like a Stratocaster neck or something. It was one of those like dual hybrid ones, and it was a weird. I think it was kind of weird, but if you could find that band somewhere, I recommend it. And when I say that, just remember it was like 20 years ago.
Take it with a grain of salt. Is Kilby Court still there?
It is. It is still there, and I just my band just barely played it. We played the block party that they have a block party every single year, but they do it on like the actual main road, and they close it all down just for the concert. But they have like 3 stages, so there's like one on one block, one on like the opposite end of the block, and then inside of actual Kilby Court.
Am I remembering right, or is it just down an alley?
It's down an alley, and bands would get spooked, and they call their booking agent being like, where the hell are we? And then it's like, a guy would come out and wave you down, and then it's like, oh, okay, here's where it is. And it was honestly, it's one of the most magical places I've ever been. Like, God, I saw like Death Cab for Cutie there. I saw Blue Meanies. I saw your band there. I saw Newfound Glory play to like 5 people. I saw like Juliana Theory play for like 10 people. God, just a bunch of cool shit. Band called Q and Not You. Saw that. I don't know if you guys know these bands.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
God, yeah, just so many great shows. And then a lot of great local shows too. There are a couple bands from Salt Lake that got signed to this label called Some Records. Do you guys know what that is?
No, never heard of that.
It's Walter Schreifel from like Gorilla Biscuits and
you
know, Quicksand and Rival Schools. He had a label, and he signed 2 of Salt Lake City's bands. One was called The New Transit Direction, which the drummer was the one I was talking about from The Used, where I said he was just like in every awesome band ever, and I really looked up to him growing up. So New Transit Direction was signed to Some Records, and then this band called Form of Rocket was also signed to Some Records, and they were just like this instrumental hardcore band. It sounded like their music sounded like when you get to like the final boss on like Super Mario Brothers. You know? So their music was like really techie. It was cool though. I really liked it. And they would just I don't think that like a producer could capture them. It's just one of those things you just have to like see in person. And they're still a band. Like to me. So they don't tour or anything, but I think, if you're in Salt Lake and Form of Rocket just happens to be playing, it's a spectacle. You should
check it out.
Yeah, I remember New Transit Direction.
New Transit Direction was very great. It had this kind of like this like jaw box sound, or like Burning Airlines, or that's about it.
I just have a specific question about I don't know how, but they found me.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking up, no, I don't know how, but they found me has touched into mainstream culture in a way that a lot of bands that I know haven't. And I think I was trying to find like what to me seems like the ultimate example of that. And you can correct me if you have a better, but to me, it's that you guys played Ellen. That seems like the perfect example of how much you've like tapped into mainstream culture.
Yeah, we did Jimmy Kimmel too. That was such a weird time because we couldn't actually go to those places.
This was COVID?
Yeah, we had to turn in footage. So although the positive side of turning in footage was that we were able to control our own sound, but the negative side of that was like you didn't get to
experience. Yeah.
I didn't get to shake Ellen's hand or get the little goodie packages that I hear so much about. Like I didn't get the iPad when you go play the show. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm just assuming that's what happens when you go on those shows, right? You just get like some little goodie bag. It's like, here you go. Didn't get the green room experience. So maybe one day we'll get to go back. But it was kind of crazy though. Just that whole thing. It didn't feel real. Also, what I heard though is that LA didn't get to see the actual Ellen performance because Tiger Woods rolled his car.
Wow, really?
And so they got broken in with a news brief?
Yes.
Oh,
so, which sucked for us for sure. But then I found out like New York saw it and like Middle America saw it, and it's living up on YouTube somewhere. Yeah. So I think I say somewhere because I think they're like with the networks. I think there's like a certain amount of time that they buy the license for it. And then after that, then we can post it on our channel, or it somewhere has a bootleg or something. But you can find it.
One final thing I want to talk about.
Yeah,
I just searched your name on YouTube, and there's some very interesting videos that come up.
I'm sure it's all part of the job. That's what's beautiful about YouTube is because it just never goes away. And you don't have to tell me anything. What I'm going to tell you is that when you're searching some of these names, what happens is that, you hire a press person and they get you some of these interviews. And at the time, the people that you're interviewing with are probably the thing of that time.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Cause there's like compilations, and I assume these compilations are made by hardcore fans.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's a really wacky world, and it's even wackier to think that I'm almost 40 years old and some of the, some of our fans think that I'm just like this approachable,
kid
that relates to them. And in some ways I do relate to them. And then a lot of other ways I don't relate to them, know?
Well, according to one of you, you're very adorable. Compilation of you being adorable.
All right. That's good with all my haircuts. And
yeah. And then there's one, this is one I find very interesting. A compilation. It's just Ryan Seaman swearing.
Oh man.
There's like 5 minutes of cuts of you like swearing.
Fuck and shit. And
yeah, it's like clips of you in different interviews or situations where you happen to be swearing.
Oh man. Yeah, I gotta watch my mouth. I mean, like, I am a sailor, according to my last name, so first with that one. Yeah. I don't know. Our fans are rabid. But you know what? If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here.
So you got to appreciate somebody that cares enough to put together 5 minutes of you swearing,
taking the time out of their precious day.
And then they hit the upload button. They say, "This is it. This is ready."
All right, last thing, Ryan. What do you, when you're in the practice space and somebody wants you to play the punk beat? What do you call the punk beat? What's your shorthand name for the punk beat?
I call it the Fat Records beat.
Okay.
Is that good? Is that good or no?
That's good. Lots of people call it the Fat Records beat.
The most used term that we.
Well, yeah, it's because it's boot da doodle da doot da doodle da. Yeah. It's funny though. In Teen Tragedies, they were like, "We do not want the Fat Records beat. We want you to do variations of things that no drummer can figure out. So I'd be like, okay. So I'd be like, you know what I mean? Just like, it's not the same thing over and over again. They wanted me to add my own thing to it, and all the kicks would be a little bit different.
Do you think you can sneak like 8 bars of the Money Beat into your new band?
You know what's great about our band is that there's really no
limit.
Ceiling. Yeah, they're right. There's no limit.
Like, it's really fun. Listen, if anybody hasn't listened to your band, it's it's so fun to listen to from like a musical perspective, because you never know what's happening next.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, like, again, you know, not giving anything away. We've written some jams, you know, that may or may not come out soon. I don't know when that's going to happen, but we have a wide collection of songs. But we even have something that's like even like in a Hall and Oates kind of variation, you know. So you never know.
Nice.
I like that. I like that it's rock, but it's like dancey and pop too. So you kind of have you're not like more one than the other. You're kind of all of those things together.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, advice for any musician: just create the music that you would want to listen to, and that's that. You know. So if you're singing 20 years from now how you live in your mom's basement eating, you know, fucking Captain Crunch, you better be damn sure that's what you want people to hear 20 years later. You know?
Thank you so much for listening to In Defense of Ska. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you normally stream or download episodes. If you haven't already, grab a copy of my book, In Defense of Ska, available at clashbooks.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. It's at In Defense of Ska. And please consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/indefenseofska. You will get monthly bonus episodes, extended interviews and commentary per episode, and access to the In Defense of Ska Discord. In Defense of Ska would not be possible without the great team that tirelessly works on it every week. So you should go check out their other projects as well. Co-host Adam Davis has an amazing band called Omnigon. Give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter. It's simply at Omnigon. And our editor, Chris Reeves, has a phenomenal record label and podcast called Ska-Punk International. For more information, go to skapunkinternational.com. And if you've ever enjoyed one of the highly specific In Defense of Ska memes floating around the interwebs, it was likely the work of The Bands I Like Only Charge $18. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on that note, we leave you by saying, Ska now more than ever.
All right. That was fun, right?
Yeah.
Listening to Ryan talk about going to ska shows, playing drums.
Drums.
He's a good drummer. Good musician. Busy musician. More busy than we are with his pod. He's busier on his podcast than we are on ours even.
What is Ryan's band? It's like a quote from a movie, isn't it?
Is it? If anybody knows what movie it is, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what it is. I didn't realize it was from a movie. I mean,
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that it's a movie quote.
I mean, as far as long band names go, I think it's a great band name.
Yeah.
So if you had fun listening to that episode, go subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, head over to our TikTok, our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, and say hi. We want to know that you listened to this episode and that you had a good time. And if you really want to support the podcast, you can go over to the Patreon. We have that too.
$5.
You sound like the kid from Better Off Dead, trying to collect for your newspapers. All right. Hey, we'll see you next time, okay? Who do we have next week?
We have a great band called The Agrolites.
Oh, The Agrolites. Yeah. Dirty Reggae.
Jesse Wagner and Roger Rivas both.
You get a twofer.
Get a twofer.
Got them both.